What's up, everybody? Welcome to the newest edition of Bet. I'm going to be your solo host here today. I'm Erin Dolan. We're bringing on a ton of guests that you guys are going to be definitely intrigued by. We're going to be talking all things NFL as well as college football. Now, you guys know as we're inching closer to this season, we already have some preseason games. So we have 6 games today, several games tomorrow. We'll hit on a couple of them there. But first, we're going to go to Jake Trotter, the Browns Nation reporter, to hear how much we're going to see Deshaun Watson play in preseason.
Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson will make his preseason debut tonight against the Washington Commanders. How much will he play? Probably a series or two, according to Coach Kevin Stefanski, who noted that all 4 quarterbacks on the roster will see time. Watson told me that he doesn't know how much rust he still has to dust off, but he did say that he's determined to be sharp with his passes and show that he now has full command of the offense. As for who else will be out on the field with Watson, Kevin Stefanski said that the majority of the starters will play as well. He would not clarify whether that will include All-Pro running back Nick Chubb, but he did tell me that everyone on the roster would be dressed, available, and ready to go.
That's some great info there by Jake. And what I want to talk about mainly with preseason is the fact, one, it is extremely difficult to bet. We go to these reporters, they tell us who's going to be playing, who's not going to be playing, and of course the big question mark is how much are we going to see them on the field? So for this specific game, the Browns, they're currently laying 3 points. That totals at 38.5. It's one that I'm not too excited about, even though Deshaun Watson is going to be playing, as well as some of the starters being dressed up there. In fact, I want to go to the highest total on the board, which right now is Pittsburgh versus Tampa Bay. It's all the way up to 40. The reason I like this one is originally I saw this line this morning and I was like, you know what, that has to be an under. It's the highest total on the board for today. But then I realized that Mike Tomlin, Todd Bowles, they decided that they're going to actually play their starters. So it's going to be Baker Mayfield versus Kyle Trask. And then when you look at the backup quarterbacks for both of these squads, you just have to keep in mind that they're actually players that are already experienced. You got Mitchell Trubisky, Mason Rudolph. That's for the Steelers, and Kyle Trask is going to be stepping in for Tampa Bay. But nonetheless, I feel like we're going to see some points scored in that game. So I would go over 40 points. But again, this is preseason games. We're trying to find edges any way that we can. We also have to talk about my Philadelphia Eagles because they will be playing as well against the Baltimore Ravens. Now, the Ravens are on a crazy preseason win streak. 23-0. Yes, you heard that right. 23-0. So let's throw it to Ravens Nation reporter Jamison Hensley to see if Lamar is going to suit up for this game.
Well, Erin, the Ravens take a lot of pride in that NFL record 23-game preseason win streak. But coaches and players don't really like to talk about it. Ravens coach John Harbaugh told me it's like a no-hitter in baseball. You don't speak about it until after the game. And Baltimore believes one of the biggest reasons why this team hasn't lost a preseason game since 2015, it's because of the depth. Lamar Jackson and other established starters won't be playing in Saturday's game against the Eagles. The Ravens want this team to be as healthy as possible heading into the regular season because it believes it's a championship team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Lamar Jackson has his best wide receiver group of his 6-year NFL career. Odell Beckham Jr. looks healthy again, catching deep passes from Lamar Jackson. Rookie first-round pick Zay Flowers has looked unstoppable in one-on-one drills. And former first-round pick Rashad Bateman, he's back practicing with the team after missing a chunk of training camp with a foot injury. As cornerback Marlon Humphrey said recently, on paper, this team looks dangerous. Now, we just have to go out and prove it.
So we heard from the Ravens side of things. Now we're going to bring in Eagles Nation reporter Tim McManus to talk more about this game. And I'm sure you heard previously that the Ravens, they're on a 23-game win streak in the preseason. So my first question for you has to be, what is the talk in the Eagles locker room in regards to this 23-0 win streak that the Ravens are on this preseason?
Yeah, Erin, actually, Coach Nick Sirianni was asked about this yesterday, and he said, of course, you always want to win. Of course, you're going to be competitive. And when it comes to Sirianni, you can take that up even another level. He was joking earlier this offseason that his wife can't even take him to game nights because he gets too overexcited there, let alone when he's talking about the NFL team that he's ahead of. And so the competitive juices will be flowing. He has a lot of respect for what the Ravens have accomplished 23 in a row. He said, that's a great feat. But, of course, the main thing is he just wants the Eagles to play clean football, and he wants to get out of there healthy. And if that means the Ravens win their 24th in a row, then so be it.
There's nothing I don't hate it that Nick Sirianni gets a little bit competitive, whether it's on the field or at a game night or things like that as an Eagles fan. I know we're trying to be neutral here as reporters and whatnot, but the other question I have for you is we look at these rookies that are now added to this roster. How much do we expect Jalen Carter as well as Nolan Smith to be on the field tonight?
Yeah, I think a decent amount. So neither of them are starters yet, although Nolan Smith got a lot of first-team reps earlier this summer when Hassan Reddick was dealing with a groin injury. And it's been really interesting to watch him line up. Of course, naturally on the edge where he plays, but they've also been using him at off-ball linebacker a little bit, lining him up along the defensive front in the interior. And so that'll be something to keep an eye on. He'll get some snaps for sure come Saturday night. And the same to be said for Jalen Carter. He's officially listed as the second-team defensive tackle behind Jordan Davis. We saw him creep up, though. He's had third-team reps, now second-team reps, and even sprinkled in with the starting unit as training camp has gone on here. You get those flashes of the power and ability that he has. But what they really want is some consistency, and the best way to get that is by playing. So expect to see plenty of Jalen Carter as well.
And let's try to look a little bit into the future here. So the Eagles aren't really going to sneak up on anybody per se, because last season, heading into the season, they were 25-1 to win the Super Bowl. This season, they opened plus 750 because, of course, they made it to the Super Bowl, but they weren't able to get that win there. How do you see the team handling the pressure and this expectation to make it back to the Super Bowl once again?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting spot because the stats say it's very difficult to get back. The last NFC team that lost the Super Bowl and got back there the next year, the 1974 Vikings, right? So it's an uphill climb. And Nick Sirianni has been using it as a motivator, saying, like, I want you to feel the sting of that. I want you to use that, but I don't want you to overly focus on it and instead pay attention to detail. And so he's been really on the guys, really from the first training camp practice, making sure that no detail went unnoticed. And really, Jalen Hurts sets the tone here. I mean, he's a guy that is just naturally motivated, and a teammate caught on his Instagram feed what Jalen Hurts' lock screen is on his phone, and it's of him walking off that stadium in Arizona with the confetti, the red and yellow confetti falling all around him. So he knows what he has to get back to. He knows all the steps that it requires, and he sets like a nice tone for this team to make sure that they're focused but not getting ahead of themselves.
The craziest part about him having that photo on his phone is the amount of times I think that I look at my phone a day, and I would have to be reminded of that. That has to be some pure motivation. But Tim, thank you so much for joining Bet. I'm sure we'll have you on throughout the season.
All right, thanks for having me. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. All right, let's talk about the odds for this game. So the Ravens, like I had said, 23-0 streak. They're the favorite in this game, -4.5. The total is at 36. I don't think the over is a terrible play because this comes back down to the quarterback play. You got Marcus Mariota versus Tyler Huntley. Now, as for Jalen Hurts, of course, there's some question marks and whatnot about what's going on with him and how much he will actually play in this game, if at all. But at the same time, let's keep in mind that Tyler Huntley, this guy has experience. He played 6 games last season for the Baltimore Ravens when Lamar Jackson took a step back, unfortunately due to injury. Then for Marcus Mariota, he ended up being benched I forget which week last season, but Desmond Ridder was able to step in. But the point being is that these are 2 quarterbacks that have experience. That's what's important when you look at some of these preseason games. These aren't just rookie quarterbacks that are going to step in and struggle, and you're not talking about a player like Patrick Mahomes who's so good that he's going to step in. These are guys who have experience. They can get it done. They can put some points on the board. I would definitely take a look at the first half over 17.5 as well, just because you know those guys are likely to be starting and whatnot. So try to get out to a fast, quick start. So I take over 17.5, and if you wanted to take the full game at 36, I don't think that would be a terrible play by any means. Now, there's many other games on the board, and one that I have eyed because I did watch Hard Knocks last night, able to catch the Jets, and what's going on with that team is the Jets right now versus Carolina. So Carolina laying -3.5, that total at 37. But first, we got to go to Jets Nation reporter Rich Cimini on how much we'll see Aaron Rodgers in his second preseason game.
Aaron, we will not see Aaron Rodgers against Carolina. Probably the only place we're going to see him is on the sideline, wearing a headset, maybe calling an occasional play or two. The Jets are planning to sit him out for the second straight week. They just feel that he's getting enough good work in practice to be ready for the regular season. I'm also told he probably won't play next week against Tampa Bay either, although there is a chance he could get a quick tune-up in the final preseason game against the Giants. Robert Saleh will start Zach Wilson against Carolina, with Tim Boyle coming on in relief. As for the rest of the starters and whether they'll play, Robert Saleh said, "We'll see. I suspect the real key starters will sit out. Garrett Wilson, who just came back to practice with an ankle injury, is highly unlikely to play, probably next week. It'll be very interesting to see how many running backs he plays. They have a good competition going on with Michael Carter and Bam Knight."
So in this game specifically, the play that I'm going to be looking at is taking the points with the Jets. Now, it's hard to come up with real great analysis for this pick. Some things are just a gut play, but the reason being, they played in that Hall of Fame game. Yes, they lost against the Cleveland Browns, but at least they have one game under their belt, whereas the Panthers, they come into this game, of course, first of the season. You got Bryce Young, who's going to be starting. The issue with me and rookie quarterbacks at the beginning of the preseason, let alone the regular season, is the fact that things can go sideways real quick. Last night we saw with the Texans, CJ Stroud, he struggled at times, 2 for 4 passing attempts, not to mention he threw 1 interception. Rookie quarterbacks preseason, I don't get excited about them, let alone in the regular season, but that's a story for another time. We can talk about that later on Bet. But I think the Jets they already have a game under their belt. They should be fine. They should be able to put up some points. We saw Zach Wilson was fine in that game as well. So I know, of course, it comes down to how many starters are going to be playing and for how long. It's a preseason, baby. All these picks, don't hold me too much to them. So that's all I got for you guys for the NFL. Again, we're in the thick of preseason, regular season coming up quick. But we also cannot forget about college football because that's going to kick off before the NFL season. So now we're going to bring in Matt Miller to talk more about this. Matt, it's great to have you here on Bet. How you doing today?
Doing well. I'm excited for college football. Like you said, it starts first. It's more important than the NFL right now.
Exactly. So that's why we're having you on this show to give us some insight into that. So the coaches poll and FBI, vastly different numbers for Michigan as well as Ohio State. So Caesars has them as a tight race. Ohio State plus 175 to win, Michigan plus 180. Who do you think is going to go on and win the Big Ten?
Yeah, Erin, this should be a tight race, but I'm taking Michigan, which is crazy to think 3 years ago we would have said that given the dominance that Ohio State had over the Wolverines. But we're looking at back-to-back years where Michigan was able to beat Ohio State. The key right now is experience. Michigan's returning quarterback J.J. McCarthy, who was one of the most improved players in the country last year. They have the best backfield in college football. Blake Corum returns from injury. We saw what Donovan Edwards did, over 200 yards rushing against Ohio State last year once Blake went down with the injury, and always going to be solid on the offensive line. They've won the Joe Moore Award 2 years in a row. Michigan right now just has that experience. Ohio State has playmakers. We know how great Marvin Harrison Jr. is. We know how great Emeka Egbuka is, but Michigan right now is just the better team. So I'm going to take them a slight edge over Ohio State.
As a Penn State alum, that slightly hurts. But let's switch over to the SEC. So Alabama is not the favorite to win it for the first time since 2009. Georgia is the favorite right now. Do you agree with what the odds makers have put the lines at?
Yeah, I think you have to. Georgia would love to have another year from Stetson Bennett. It's unfortunate that his 9 years of eligibility are up because for them, it's going to be uncharted territory at the quarterback position. They're going to be breaking in a new quarterback. They have a new playmaker, Dominic Lovett, who transferred from Missouri, who's going to be kind of their weapon on offense. But I think Georgia still, like I said with Michigan, they're going to dominate the lines. We know the offensive line is going to be great. The defense is always exceptional. A new offensive coordinator in Mike Bobo is probably going to get more of a spread out attack. And of course, Brock Bowers, their tight end, is one of the best players in the entire country and will be a very early draft pick in 2024. So you never want to bet against Alabama. And I think this year the SEC is really a toss-up more so than it's been in quite some time. There's not that one dominant team that has a ton of returning talent. I think you could throw LSU in there as a team that could definitely contend. Ooh. Great coaching with Brian Kelly now. They have some experience coming back on offense, some playmakers that could really, turn things upside down. Also, Harold Perkins and Mason Smith for LSU on defense are two players that you want to keep an eye on for All-American honors and future NFL draft picks. So this is a year where the SEC is much more, I think, unstable than it's been probably since Nick Saban got to Alabama.
Well, unstable definitely makes it very exciting. Moving on with a different conference. Right now in the Big 12, Texas is at even money. And by the way, they're also in a conference with TCU, who stunned a lot of people last season. But when we're taking a look at Texas, they have not won the conference since 2018. Do you think they're a clear favorite here to win?
I'm not just saying this because of the little Texas helmet over my right shoulder, Erin, but I do think they should be favored to win this year. If Steve Sarkisian can't get it done this year with how down the Big 12 is, we're going to be talking about a hot seat before they move to the SEC. Texas is one of the most loaded rosters in college football. Quinn Ewers is in the second year with this Sark system. He should take a step forward. The mullet's gone. He's a more mature player. He has said, yes, they lose Bijan Robinson, but the wide receiver room is stacked for Texas. They have one of the best offensive lines in the country. They have veterans on defense, guys like Jalen Ford, who's going to be a leader in the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year standings. And the rest of the conference is down. You mentioned TCU. They graduated almost that entire offense. Mac Duggan's gone. Kendra Miller's gone, Quentin Johnston's gone. So they're really turning over a new leaf at TCU. The defense should be solid, but right now in the Big 12, it's Texas and then everyone else kind of looking up at them, which is what seems to happen. The Longhorns always have a target on their backs. Historically, they have not played well when those expectations are that high without Vince Young at quarterback, that is. So this is a year where I think Steve Sarkisian has to prove in the last year in the Big 12 that Texas can get this done.
Yeah, the expectations are definitely high for Texas. And don't worry about your background. I get called out nonstop when I give any type of take on anything Philadelphia. That's neither here nor there. We got to have good backgrounds as analysts. But since we're going down the conferences, Pac-12, I have to ask you about them, just considering I don't know how much longer I'm going to have teams in that conference. So USC is the current favorite, but there's 3 to 4 schools in play according to the odds. Who do you like to win the Pac-12?
3 to 4 schools in play, only 3 to 4 schools left in the Pac-12 after this year. I think you have to look at USC as they should be the favorite. Lincoln Riley has been masterful at developing quarterbacks, at developing offenses. They've got to get some things figured out on defense where they're going to have 5 to 6 new starters just in the front 7 that should help. But a team to keep an eye on is the Washington Huskies. Michael Penix at quarterback. The lefty is a playmaker. We saw that last year. They have a great wide receiver corps for him to get the ball to. And on defense, a player like Braylon Trice can really headline a front 4 that could be a lot of problems for teams like USC, like Utah. So yes, the star power's there with Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley and all the bright lights of LA for USC. But I think Washington has that chip on their shoulder. They want to prove that they can play at this high level before everyone moves to the Big Ten and they get to deal with your Nittany Lions and Ohio State and Michigan every year.
I know. Fun fact, I did go to Oregon for 2 years before that. So I'm a little bit in the Pac-12, a little bit in the Big Ten. I'm a little mixture there. But since you mentioned Caleb Williams, we'll stick with USC here. He's currently the favorite to repeat and win the Heisman once again. It would be the first time since 1975. 12 other players have had the opportunity. They fell short. Do you think Caleb actually has a shot to win it again?
I do. I think he's that good, number one. I think it helps when you head into the season with the notoriety, also with the expectations of being a very high draft pick. That helps put your name in the minds of these voters who maybe aren't always staying up to watch Pac-12 After Dark. But Caleb also is talented enough to have, I think, a better year this year. Yes, he's been familiar with Lincoln Riley's system. They were together at Oklahoma. He started for half a season as a Texas fan. Yes, I remember when he came in at halftime and led the comeback. You don't have to remind me in the comments. But that ability is there. And I think this year we could see him take it to the next level. And the other side of it is, who else is there that on offense in college football right now that is a household name? Because the Heisman has become a quarterback award. It has become a household name award. Maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. at wide receiver for Ohio State, but they're breaking in a new quarterback. So we could see what happens to his numbers. But I think it's Caleb Williams' award to win. We haven't seen, like you mentioned, anyone repeat in quite some time. USC has a track record of guys like Matt Leinart we thought had a chance to repeat. Then here comes Reggie Bush. So we'll see if someone else steps up at USC and steals some of the votes from Caleb, but I think right now it's definitely his award to lose. He should be the front runner.
Okay, I'm in agreement with you there. So thank you so much, Matt, for joining Bet today. You gave us some great insights. We'll be having you on the show, I'm sure, throughout the fall. So good luck with everything this upcoming season. All right, guys, now time for our last segment called Before I Let You Go, which we do at the end of every show for Bet. Now, typically it's a pick, and I kind of gave this one out earlier in the show, so if you're just tuning in now, the pick was a preseason pick. So don't hold me too much to this. but I do think that in the Eagles-Ravens game, you should take the first half over 17.5 points. Got Marcus Mariota versus Tyler Huntley. These are two quarterbacks that we know well. By well, I'm saying we know how these guys have played. They've had experience starting games. Tyler Huntley played 6 games last season. Marcus Mariota, although he was benched for Desmond Ridder, was the starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. So I think they're going to start off hot, get some points on the board in the first half there. But again, 6 preseason games today. Got a whole slate tomorrow. College football is upon us, as well as the NFL season. So we'll have more shows coming up here on Bet. We'll see you guys then. Thank you so much for tuning into this edition of Bet. We'll see you guys again soon.